In 2002, Cal softball player Chelsea Spencer smacked an RBI double in the seventh inning of a Women's College World Series game, cementing a historic victory over Arizona. Not only was this the first national championship in the program's history, it was the first NCAA women's team championship in Cal history. This thrilling moment might not have happened if not for a landmark law that dramatically altered athletics at Cal and beyond. June 23, 2022 marks the 50th anniversary of the enactment of Title IX, which says no one can be excluded from any UC education program or activity receiving federal aid, including sports, on the basis of gender. Cal awarded its first scholarship to basketball legend Colleen Galloway in 1977. Over time, thousands of female athletes across what totals 16 sports today have realized their potential at Cal.
Title IX is the part of the Education Amendments of 1972. So it really began initially as a means of opening up college opportunities for women and general attitudes that kept women back in schools where they were paying the same tuition. And only after it was passed did people realize the impact it would have on sports.
I think Title IX was the best thing that could happen to athletics for women. It really, it just had people look at it and say, all right, we do need to help the women get better. And we need to help them, not that we didn't have the ability to do it, but to allow them to have the facilities and allow them to have the travel. It's had a big impact, there's no doubt. And now with the 50th year, just amazing how much TV is covering it. I guess I'm just amazed at how well Cal came forward in the 15 years that we were separate. We had no uniforms. If we were on a team sport, we wore what they call pennies, and they had numbers on them, so we put them on like an apron. We had terrible facilities as far as they're not adequate. We could play, but they certainly didn't foster good competition. We played in Hurst Gym, which the end lines are both cement walls. So you can imagine playing basketball and trying to do a layup with a cement wall as the end line. In volleyball, I coached volleyball, and the ceiling at Hurst Gym wasn't high enough. So a lot of times we bumped the ball up and it would hit the ceiling. And no locker rooms. We had to use private cars sometimes, university cars, no money for food, lodging. We'd have sometimes 6-8 people in one room. So it was really so different, and it's so much fun to talk to the student athletes now and explain that that's the way it was. And we were able to compete, but we just didn't have all the luxuries that's going on now.
At the time, I didn't care. We made the most of those opportunities, but I now see how different it can be. I just got to see the women's basketball coaches' offices. And the offices for women's basketball coaches then was at Hurst Gym. It wasn't even in the same facility where we played. So it was incredibly different. But at the time, I don't think I noticed it as anything different. I just loved playing and loved Cal.
I was so impressed with what Lou Lillich, our women's athletic director and our only women's athletic director for 15 years. Cal was the last major university to offer scholarships to the women. And so she went to the vice chancellor and said, we must have scholarships. We cannot compete on an equal level.
I'm one of 7 kids. My dad worked for Safeway for over 54 years. And so they would not have been able to afford me going to Cal or a prestigious university. Getting that scholarship gave me the opportunity for an education that I wanted and allowed me to keep playing basketball. So getting that scholarship, that's how I viewed it. I didn't view it in terms of Title IX and the start of something for female athletes. Looking back now, when I found out that I was the first, I think I got some historical perspective and thought, that's pretty cool.
We really achieved a lot. We went from nothing to the 4th best women's program in the nation in about 10 years. And I mean, that's just phenomenal knowing what we started with.
I'm amazed at how quickly we've caught up in 50 years. The impact of Title IX really didn't really make a big impact until probably about 20 years ago, I think.
So it's not a question of are women capable, it's how we push back against, hey, you're entering into a sphere where you don't belong. And that could be a private golf club, or it could be a school, or it could be being a place kicker on a football team. So every single attitude had to inch along, and that is part of what's being celebrated, that we've moved along in, but not completely, in both reconciliation with racism and the limitations on women and girls. We also have changed our attitude. The old stereotype, you could succeed as an athlete but fail as a woman.
My mom, Christina, she was a huge inspiration. I remember going to masters practices and on-back practices. They had that in San Diego. She was with a bunch of women her age who just loved the sport, and they started at SDSU. They started the first club there, and from then on, for their 4 years in college, they had a great time traveling, having to pay for their own way, having to pay for their buses, entry fees to tournaments, to hotels to stay. And I didn't really understand the gravity of it. When I was young back then, I'd just get in, splash around, throw a ball around. But looking back at it, that's really inspiring, because many teammates on her on-back team, they were women who were the first women's national team for water polo and part of the first Olympic women's team. And to be exposed to that also, that's awesome. And that's where my love for water polo grew and started.
I'm glad that people like my mom and my sister even have such great opportunity in America, in places like Auburn where they went and swam, places like here. It's just so great to know that they can really be acknowledged for their achievements and their abilities and go and be given opportunities like swimming in college. So the opportunity to swim in college for her was just so great that she could create an opportunity like that to go swim at such a great school, education, all that stuff, and of course excel in the way she did.
It means a lot to me, and especially as an adopted Korean, I wouldn't even have had the opportunity before, and so being able to see where I am now, especially as a student athlete that's a woman, I think it's pretty amazing. There definitely is still plenty of work to be done to create equal environments for men and women, and I mean, I do see change happening, but of course, there's always plenty of work that can be done.
It's not equal, we're not where we need to be, but I think we're closer to it than I thought we would be at this point.
I think we're all athletes, when it comes down to it. We're all going through the same pain, the same gain.
I know there's some struggles that our women are still dealing with today in athletics, and it's unfortunate to see. Definitely there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
I would love to see more emphasis put on people coming to the events and seeing the games. The newspapers used to be crazy. They'd say, we'd cover you if you had people in the stands. And we'd say, well, if you put it in the paper ahead of time, we might have more people in the stands. I think it's unfortunate because the women student athletes right now, they do everything the men do. They have training, they have everything. And yet people don't recognize that. They think they're kind of down here playing Little League versus the big pros on the men's side. And I think it's unfortunate because the women are outstanding to watch. I mean, they're just incredible. Cal, we've had some Olympians, and as you know, quite a few of them.
We need to get more people at women's games. We need to advertise them more robustly. We need to see faculty in those bleachers. I think we want to work on paths to encouraging, say, Muslim women and girls to greater participation, where abiding by guidelines of a modest uniform may limit their participation or their time in a swimming pool. That's all easily adjusted, and I think it simply involves a broader vision of who is an athlete. But we also have to remember that when you graduate, Title IX goes away. You don't have that in general society. We don't have an Equal Rights Amendment, so it's kind of the closest thing to an equality law, but only insofar as you're a student and at a school that accepts federal funding. Having learned from the past 50 years that cutting men's teams to make it look like you're putting more money into women's sports only makes tension between men and women, so there has to be a way to add and not remove. And I think we need more women athletic directors and coaches. We're skittish in American culture about women having authority over men. So we're less likely to see women as referees and officials at men's games. But that is changing.
A lot has changed, and the work continues. As Cal's year-long celebration begins, I invite you to learn about equity in sports and to support our female student athletes. We will keep pushing for better access and opportunities, whether that means recruiting the best athletes from the broadest backgrounds or providing resources for them to thrive once they arrive.